5 menit. Terima kasih.
Tes, tes.
Malam ya Mel, aku lagi nggak bermain, butuh konsentrasi. Papa kalau kencang aja banget suruh kecil. Ya tetap aja kedengaran. Soalnya aku
Tes,
banyak orang.
tes. Dah.
Kamu di kamar aja.
Dikecilin dikit ya. Kenapa? Dikecilin dikit. Kecilin dikit. Malah kegedean. Katanya gede ya? Udah ya. Coba cek dulu. Tes. Mungkin awalnya. Kita harus nyebutin nama-nama negara dulu. Negara ASEAN aja tuh. Nah, gue lagi nyari negara-negara ASEAN. Maksudnya gitu.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Our session is about to begin.
Before we proceed with the event, please have a seat and make yourself comfortable. And most importantly, please switch your phones to silent mode. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Shalom,
Om Swastiastu.
Namo Buddhaya,
Greetings of virtue.
and may peace be upon us all. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and we are delighted to welcome you to the Regional Strategic Gathering of the ACPC APF 2023.
Allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Marwa Lukman,
My name is Muhammad Janoza,
and we will be accompanying all of you as the MC of this event. Now, with much honor, I would like to welcome the representative from the ACAC APF 2023 Regional Steering Committee and the representative of National Organizing Committees, both who join in person and online, the diplomatic committees from the UK and Canadian Embassy, and to everyone that is attending this event.
distinguished participants, today's event is a regional strategic meeting of the ACSC APF 2023, where it aims to provide a safe space for people's voices and strengthen an intersectional, cross-movement, and cross-border solidarity among ASEAN civil society and people's movements. This strategic regional gathering will be held from the 5th to the 7th May 2023 in Atmajaya Catholic University of Indonesia with a hybrid setting.
There will be 6 thematic discussions, namely about climate and environmental justice, socio-economic justice, reclaiming civic and democratic space, peace and human security, human rights and safe space of vulnerable and marginalized groups, and the 6th one is alternative regionalism.
The main objectives of this gathering are to review, monitor, and discuss the regional situation,
to strategize the CSO's unity and solidarity for a successful ACAC APF 2023,
to create the opportunity for the NOC's committees to meet both in person and online, to be able to discuss the ACPC APF 2023 concept note, theme and logo, discuss the convergence space thematic for the September Forum, as well as to present the national processes.
to develop the advocacy targets such as strategic action plans and its timeline, actors mapping, potential interface meetings, and including respond to the ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo, both in May and September.
And lastly is to hold the first regional ACAC EPF press conference.
Before we begin, allow me to read the main agendas of today's event. Starting from the plenary discussion on strengthening ACAC APF with the speakers, Kin Omar from the Progressive Voice of Myanmar, Dwi Ardanirswari from the University of Indonesia, Josephine Perella from HomeNet Southeast Asia, and Gerald Joseph from the Chairperson Executive Committee of FA. Then, plenary discussion 2, we will discussing about strategic direction to review, monitor, and discuss the regional situation as well as the ACAPF outcome document and ways forward. The specific plenary discussion will be closed only for the Regional Steering Committee and all national organizing committees members. Last but not least, there will be thematic discussion about climate crisis and environmental justice, and all thematic discussion is open to everyone to join, then closed by the plenary closing to discuss the next strategic plan ahead to the ACAC APF in September 2023.
All right, so let us now begin the conference. Distinguished guests, faculty members, participants, ladies and gentlemen, as the host of this conference, I would like to welcome the Indonesia co-chairs of ACAC APF 2023 for the welcoming remarks. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, Human Rights Working Group, Daniel Awigra. Secondly, there's from Kalyana Mitra, Rena Herdiani. The third from Arus Prangi, Nono Sugiono. And lastly, from the Commission for Disappeared and Victims of Violence, Kontras, Fatia Malunyanti.
Very good morning. Selamat pagi. Selamat datang di Jakarta. Dan terima kasih. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome you all who are attending in both online and offline setting directly from Atmajaya Catholic University, Jakarta. On behalf of the National Organizing Committee Indonesia, I'd like to express our special gratitude to all Civitas Academica of Atmajaya Catholic University of Jakarta that for hosting this event, which brings us as a clear reminder, for all of us, of what happened within this month back to 1990. That time, there was strong collaboration between civil society and academic community supported the reform agenda, what so-called here reformasi, that contributed to the Thank you so much, Tadi. Violating freedom of expression, which is the heart of democracy, is also violating human rights. In our region, we continue to see brutal human rights violation. Just less than a month ago, on 11 April, the deadliest airstrike to civilians happened in Myanmar since the military seized power, killing at least 170 people while they are celebrating to the opening of a community hall. 2 days ago, we were shocked by the news that a young activist was shot in a public in Laos. We also see a continuing crackdown democracy in Cambodia, and so on and so forth, where, of course, independent media are forced to shut down. This way, we are here today as a civil society from various Southeast Asia countries to hold hands and stand up together to defend human rights and democracy with the spirit of solidarity in Southeast Asia country under the project regionalism, what's so-called ASEAN. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about ASEAN, it was only 2015, or 7 years after the charter was adopted, ASEAN was finally brave enough to adopt the term of people-centered in its document. The term was adopted in the vision of ASEAN 2025 Forging Ahead Together, in which the member states agreed to build a rule-based, people-oriented, people-centered ASEAN community where the people enjoy human rights and fundamental freedom, higher qualities of life, and the benefit of community building. Now, all those words in ASEAN document feel empty. Our leader, ASEAN leader, wanna have a ASEAN summit in a very beautiful place in Labuan Bajo. Cantik ya, Labuan Bajo. I've been there. But we are not invited, unfortunately. To be honest, also it is a sign that, even though it's been mentioned, people-centered, but we are not acknowledged. We also knowing from the press conference by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Indonesia that they will have an agenda to have interface meeting with 4 groups engaging youth, business, parliamentarian, and high-level task force on the ASEAN post-2025 vision. And according to ASEAN Ministerial Meeting press release back on September 2023, under the Indonesian Charter of ASEAN, there was no mention at all about civil society engagement, as well as no mention of the Asian Civil Society Conference and ASEAN People Forum on their agenda, even though it is been recognized in Asia Socio-Cultural Group in 2015. If Indonesia to hold chairship while ignoring civil society, Indonesia is failing to the Asia Socio-Cultural agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, ahead of the summit next week, we are gathered here to the next 3 days and the following September to discuss some concern among civil society in ASEAN, which must be heard of all ASEAN member states and their leaders. I'd like to thank to all prominent speakers from various countries in ASEAN region who will be sharing their knowledge and experience while we also discussing some pressing issues that we face in Southeast Asia, especially related to the situations of human rights and democracy. The theme we'll be discussing include climate and environmental justice, socio-economic justice, civic and democratic space, peace and human security, human rights and safe space for vulnerable and marginalized groups, as well as alternative regionalism. I welcome and encourage all of you attending the event to share your thoughts and ideas and share experience to enrich our discussion. I'd like also, lastly, to thank everyone who make this event possible. It is just a new start. It is a kick-off of our solidarity and struggle together, defending human rights while commemorating reformasi or reform agenda here in Atmajaya. Lastly, from the lesson that I've been mentioned about the histories of Indonesia and also how we've been treated in
Recording
Asia,
in
I
progress.
think it's not much if we here call for one agenda, democratizing ASEAN, reclaiming people's space for a just, safe, equitable space for a just economy and inclusive community in Southeast Asia. I thank you so much. Welcome again, and also have a fruitful discussion and meeting. I pass over to my other colleagues, Rena. Thank you so much.
Dear distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, so good morning, selamat pagi for Indonesian friends and also for friends from other countries. I see from Malaysia, from Thailand coming, from Philippines also, so welcome to Jakarta. And thank you for coming and then support these 3 events in Atmajaya. I would like also to thank Atmajaya as a host, yeah, and also our venue for APF Acsc ASEAN Civil Society Conference ASEAN People Forum 2023 that will be organized or held in September. So this place will be our venue for September event. And this event, 3 days event, is forum to discuss many issues, yeah. So our MC already mentioned we have 6 thematic issues that will be discussed more detail. We will find emerging issues that will be highlighted in our September event. It probably will organized in the beginning of September, because our ASEAN Summit will be held by our government in Jakarta. I forget the date, 5 until 7 September. So before ASEAN Summit, we will organize APF, and then we will discuss more on the emerging issues that will be highlighted, that will be our concern, and we will make a recommendation to ASEAN leaders in the ASEAN Summit. So ASEAN Summit is one of platform that become our target of advocacy of civil society organization in this region. And we see many students here from Atmajaya and also maybe from other university. So we hope that our students also can learn about the facts, the problems that faced by the society and the issues of civil societies, for instance, like limitation, shrinking of democratic space and also civic freedom. So it's become a big problem in all of ASEAN countries. So this is also because ASEAN People Forum or ASEAN Civil Society Conference, it already organized for 17 years. So every year we organize this event, and then the organizer change. Last year, so Cambodia National Organizing Committee will become organizer, and this year Indonesian CSOs will be the organizer of the APF. And then in each APF or ASEAN Civil Society Conference, there is some common issues that always discussed, always raised by the civil society organization. So it means that the situations is not, maybe for the policy there is a progress, but there is also the situations becoming backward for our movement. And then we hope that Indonesian government, during Indonesian government as chair of ASEAN this year, so they can engage more civil society to listen to us, to listen our concern, our recommendations to make ASEAN more democratic space for us, for all of us, to make ASEAN more inclusive, and to also to achieve gender equality, human rights, yeah. So human rights principles not only on the paper, but it should be implemented in ASEAN countries. So it's very important for us to encourage, yeah, to encourage our government to remember. So they are the representative of elites, and they should be listened to us, should be accommodated of our concerns, and then all policies in ASEAN should be involved, people, yeah, people. It means us, civil society, and also community in the grassroots. Also, it's very important to hear their voice, because the people at the grassroots level is the groups that impacted by the ASEAN policies, especially economic policies. So we will discuss further about some issues. We hope that you can participate actively, both in online and in offline. So, but sorry for online, maybe because we set the Zoom in webinar, so maybe cannot comment or add more issues. But for offline, maybe you can also ask or giving your idea or sharing in during the thematic discussions. So once again, welcome, and then I hope that you will have fruitful discussion, and this event, today's event, can build the solidarity among us, among the people in Southeast Asia, to stand for human rights, for democracy, for gender equality, and for the people, for the vulnerable people, vulnerable groups. Okay, thank you so much, and then have a fruitful discussion. I would like to pass to Kanono.
Thank you, Karena. I would like to speak by Bahasa Indonesia. Selamat datang kawan-kawan NOC dari negara-negara, sama Awi dan Rena tadi, bahwa momentum ini momentum yang sangat pas di 25 tahun reformasi Indonesia. Semangatnya harusnya memberikan dampak yang luas, tidak hanya dirasakan oleh di Indonesia tapi juga di seluruh negara-negara di ASEAN. Harusnya memberikan ruang aman, nyaman, juga memberikan keadilan dan kesejahteraan bagi semua orang. Sayangnya di 25 tahun reformasi ini banyak sekali hal-hal, masih banyak diskriminasi dan perlakuan buruk yang terjadi pada kelompok rentan. Dan itu dirasakan di berbagai lini kehidupan kelompok rentan. Kami berharap bahwa momentum Acsc APF ini menjadi ruang aman, nyaman untuk saling bercerita, bertukar informasi, menambah pengalaman, dan memperkuat solidaritas di antara civil society di ASEAN, khususnya negara-negara yang memang berkonflik dengan pemerintahnya. Ini menjadi momentum besar bagi kita untuk memberikan rekomendasi baru untuk government kita, untuk pembuat kebijakan, untuk menjadikan kebijakan itu lebih humanis, lebih demokratis, lebih lebih setara dan adil lagi ke depannya. Demikian dari saya.
Okay, as the last co-chair that will share my welcoming remarks, I would like to say good morning and then welcome to all NOCs and then also all the guests that already spending and then also come to this event. I would like to thanks to the Regional Steering Committee for all the supports, and then also the fellow co-chair, and the NOC of Indonesia and other NOCs from different parts of ASEAN, and the Atmajaya University for the place, and then also a very warm welcome for all of us, and the student community that also helping us in preparing this program, and also the community. So here in the ASEAN People's Forum, and then also in this preparation for the main event in September, we need to actually ensure that development and then also foreign investment that already established and then also been cooperated by the ASEAN leaders should be. ASEAN is not just a golf club, so they have to be concrete in terms of human rights and then also democratic policies that made in the ASEAN region, and not only as a gathering that only discuss about the development and economics, but also about its human being and also their lives. The civic drinking space have been a burden and also need some preparation and revitalization. We do know that no countries in ASEAN right now is in actually a good condition of democratic spaces. We have a lot of repression, we have a lot of attacks, we had a lot of conflict that happening, and nothing have been discussed or have been become a policy that actually could reduce the process of the judicial harassment, and then also to reduce the rates of the killings, and then also all the threats that happening to human rights defenders, and then also to the other communities that defending their rights. So in this opportunity, I also would like to agree that the development is needed. But how and whom does the development exist if the people are being repressed? So I do hope that the regional strategic gathering as a kickoff of the main event in September and as the avenue of the CSOs in ASEAN could gather and speak up about the demand of justice, empowering human rights, and could make a change for the situation as a concrete action and to be taken seriously to consider by the ASEAN leader. Because ASEAN will not be ASEAN without its people. I wish you have a robust and fruitful discussion on the next 3 days. And on behalf of the chair, I would like, behalf of the co-chair, I would like to also apologize for any inconvenience that might happen. And we are open to any kind of input so that I thank you very much and welcome to the Regional Strategic Gathering.
Right, thank you so much for the Indonesia co-chairs of the ACAC APF 2023 for the welcoming remarks.
Next up, opening remark is coming from the place where we are this moment, the Atmajaya University. Please welcome the Rector of Atmajaya University of Indonesia.
Very good morning and greeting from Jakarta, distinguished speakers and participants of ASEAN Civil Society Conference or ASEAN People Forum 2023. First of all, I would like to welcome you all, participants, speaker, organizer, or everyone who are attending this forum, both offline. On behalf of Atmajaya Catholic University of Indonesia, as a part of the organizer of this forum and also a part of the forum, also we would like to congratulate the entire team from civil society organization that are member of National Organizer Committee Indonesia and the committee from Atmajaya University for the implementation of this series of events, which will start from today until the next 3 days. ASEAN Civil Society Conference is the dedicated platform of civil society in the region to advocate the people's concern and issues to the regional process in ASEAN. Acsc University is honored to be the host of SCSG 2023 with a full hope that our involvement as the host of this event can also be a momentum for collaboration between civil society and academia in advancing public and people's agendas in this region. Ladies and gentlemen, 20 years ago, in the same month, Atmajaya University became one of the pillars or one of the actors of the reformation on the momentum of democratization in Indonesia. In May 1998, we took really part in democratizing Indonesia with some reformation agenda. Now, 25 years later, Atmajaya University feels honored to be part of this joint movement that has a theme to democratizing ASEAN. After 20 years of reforms, we have been living in a country that is more open and respect to human rights. However, democratization has still significant challenges, not only in Indonesia but also in other parts of ASEAN, like for instance in Myanmar. It is a real challenge of our community in ASEAN. Therefore, we really support the theme of Acsc this year, democratizing ASEAN, reclaiming people's safe and equitable space for a just economy and inclusive community as our common goals today. Democracy that does not only mean of freedom in civil spaces, but also democracy in economic life as well as social and cultural life. Ladies and gentlemen, all attendants of this forum, the Asian Civil Society Conference deserves to be a very important forum for the aspiration of civil society in Southeast Asia. Indonesia's role as a chair of ASEAN should be important to promote the people-centered and the people-oriented process of democracy. With prominent triggered speakers from various countries in this region, over the next 3 days, we will be discussing a lot of problems that occur in Southeast Asia, especially related to the situations of human rights and democracy in the region, which includes issues regarding civil liberties, economic justice, ecological justice, and inclusive spaces for all levels of society. As a nation people, let's make the best use of this forum from today to the next 3 days. Let's have a fruitful 3 days conference as a regional strategic gathering, and let's use this forum as a space to consolidate our voices and make it a point to urge the people-centered and people-oriented ASEAN to include the agenda of advancing human rights and democracy in Asian future work and policies. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the first plenary discussion that will be discussing deeper about strengthening Acsc APF. This session will be moderated by our Dean in the Faculty of Law of Atmajaya, Ibu Iur Asmin Francisca. Before that, we would like to give a brief Without any further ado, I would like to pass the floor to the moderator. Everyone, please welcome Ibu Asmi.
Selamat pagi, good morning everyone. Welcome to Atmajaya, and I think, ladies, gentlemen, friends, colleagues, students, and young students here, both online and offline. Welcome to ASEAN Civil Society Conference and ASEAN People Forum 2023. And we will start our first panels with prominent 4 speakers. Allow me to read several notes, their really long experiences on human rights and democracy, not only in their country but also analyst, which is awarded annually to a woman or a young person with the courage to fight indifference, prejudice, oppressions, and injustice in order to promote a good life for all people in an environment marked by respect for human rights. For her courageous and visionary work as a source of inspiration for all those engaged in struggle for human rights and for a life of dignity. For the people of Burma, King Omar's unerring faith provides hope and confidence that a just future is. The award presenters describe King Omar as one of the strongest voice against Burma's violent regimes. Please welcome King Omar through online platform. The second panelist is Joseph. Joseph Olive Parilla. Olive herself a micro-entrepreneur, is one of the founders of Patamaba Wise, a community-based social enterprise found in the lake town of Angono, Rizal, east of Metro Manila. She is known as a passionate advocate for women's economic and political empowerment and the promotions of the rights of women in the informal economy. She is well known as an informal worker leaders in the Philippines, being in the executive committee of Homanet Philippines, the president of Matabawais, workers in the informal sector enterprise, and a secretary of the Homanet Producers Cooperative. She has served as social development chair of the Regional Development Council of Regions 4A or Calabarzon, and member of National Anti-Poverty Commissions, workers in the Informal Sectors Council. She is also very active in the women's movement, serving as president of the Rizal Provincial's Local Council of Women, as a vice president for the National Capital Regions of the National Council of Women in the Philippines. And also, she is a member of Gerald Joseph, we know him for quite so long, from the Human Rights Consultant, former Commissioners of Human Rights Commissions of Malaysia or Suhakam. For the last 30 years, Mr. Gerald Joseph has been a human rights defender and an experienced trainer consultant at both local and international level on human rights issues concerning the rights of indigenous peoples, elimination of racial discriminations, and economic, social, and cultural rights. He also recently completed his term of the 6 years of Commissioner of Suhakam and chaired the working group of complaint. He is pioneering the program on non-discrimination since 2006 in Malaysia CSO context, and he has developed advocacy and education tool on combating racial discriminations. He is a senior CSO member who has led the Malaysia NGOs reporting to the UPR working group in Geneva. He was chairman of the ASEAN Civil Society Conference, ASEAN People Forum process in 2006 and till 2007. Please say hi to both our panelists in online, Ms. Olive and also Mr. Gerard Joseph. Now, beside me ada Mbak Ririn. Riris tuh kan, salah saya. Gimana sih jadi moderator udah salah. Mbak Riris nanti bisa kenalan langsung juga ya. Mbak Riris a lecturer. Siapa yang di sini yang dari UI? Ya. A lecturer at UI ya Mbak, dari HI, Hukum Internasional. Coba saya lihat contekan saya ada di mana ya? Panjang banget soalnya. The CV is very long. So I will try to find my notes. Hopefully, I get it. Mbak Riris is a lecturer at the International Relations Department, University of Indonesia. She has been actively involved in human rights working groups since 2010. Working on various research projects related to the civil society, civil society involvement in the process of ASEAN regionalisms. Her book titled titled Regionalizing Global Human Rights Norms in Southeast Asia was published by Margrave Macmillan in 2021. Wow, it's amazing. And Mbak Riris also published several books that maybe I can quote di sini, Mbak, dan maybe it's very interesting to us to develop more in discussions. She wrote about masyarakat transnasional paradigma and actor, and also her research about the sociological regionalisms, conceptualizing the bottom-up process of ASEAN regionalisms, and also about the civil society participations in ASEAN regionalism, and strengthening how we can strengthen the capacity of ASEAN People Forums and ASEAN Social Society Conference for the next agenda. Please welcome Mbak Riris together with us. Let's start without further ado. I think we will have a lot of discussions and a lot of time for question and answer. Maybe I can share with Mbak Riris to talk the first as a panelist, the first panelist. Yeah. Please welcome Mbak Riris, kawan-kawan.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Moderator. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, co-chairs, for having me here. It is always an honor to be invited and get involved in the activities of the institution from HRG, especially who always have me in mind. To be honest, being here, I feel a bit alienated because I think I'm the only academician here. In between all the activists, all the civil society organization, representation of civil society organization, who I believe is the key person who make this ASEAN, what ASEAN want to be ASEAN-centered, people-centered, people-oriented. Without all of you, that will be only a dream. So today I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about us, about Acsc IPF, us, where we are, why we are here now. And I have to admit that what I'm going to talk about here is a summary of the research that we did during the pandemic for HRG, and I have to say that one of the author, part of the book, part of me is also Mas Awi here, so you are also here to answer question, yeah? Thank you for trusting me to represent our research. Yeah, probably next. Yeah, so this is the book. The title is Civil Society Participation in ASEAN Regionalism. So this is, in this book, we make a thorough assessment about the past Acsc and IPF. Acsc IPF, yeah. We did some assessment of the documents, to the documents, all the official documents, all the media coverage, all the things that we can find online, we can find in the archive of HRG, and make assessment about the strength, the opportunity, the weaknesses, the challenges faced by Acsc IPF. So as I said before, this book, the project was done during the peak of the pandemic. So I appreciate HRG during the pandemic. It never stopped them to keep thinking about civil society and how civil society can participate in regionalism. It was, I remember, October, November, December 2020 when we gathered every week via Zoom to discuss all the things that we found in our assessment. So the book finally published into 2021, but I have to make an acknowledgement in here that one of the chapter from the book is an unpublished research report that we did also, that I did also for the HRWG, titled Civil Society and the Process of ASEAN Regionalism. Again, it's a content analysis of Acsc. With co-author Bambang Hartadi-Nugroho. So this is the book, and the book is available online in HRWG website. Yeah, so and free, can be downloaded anytime to all of us who want to know more about this book. So what we did in this book is, as I said before, we make some objective academic assessment on the strength, the opportunity and challenges faced by Acsc APF. During our assessment, this is what we found about the Acsc APF itself. So this is actually about us. This is just a reminder for all of us. So by 2020, it's a 2023 now. By 2020, there are 16 annual events, 16 consecutive years. By now, it's already been 18. The first one was held in 2005 in Malaysia. It's organized by Acsc and in close cooperation with NOC. The most important thing is it is recognized by ASEAN. It is the most important thing. It mentioned in Acsc blueprint, as mentioned by Mas Awi in his remarks. It was held in 9 member states countries, apart from Laos, plus Timor-Leste in 2016. By 2020, during that 16 annual events, it is attended by more than 13,640 participants. So it's more now. It should be around 14,000 participants by now. And as you may have aware, the forum discussed all aspects of people's elements of interest. So we discuss all topics related to human interest, issues faced by the people in the region. It consists of thematic workshops, or now it's called convergence spaces, and the interface dialogue. Interface dialogue with the government happened only 6 times, unfortunately, during the 16 event. So this is us. This is us. What happened with us since 2005? Yeah, and it represents the opportunities that we have. Yeah. First, the most important thing is recognition from ASEAN and member states. Yeah. When it is mentioned, I think Acsc APF is like the only forum mentioned officially in an ASEAN official documents. With this recognition, member states, all the member states who become the chairman of ASEAN this year have no option but to have this forum. Yeah. So we will have this forum. I mean, with all the variation, with all the problem, national problem, domestic issues, with all the bargaining between civil society and government. But this forum should happen every year. Yeah. So we have this recognition. It is one of our main opportunities. Second opportunities is we have the trust from the people. We have the trust from our networks. We have the trust among us. Yeah. All of us, civil society, movement, organization, official movement or not, all of us expect this forum to happen every year. Yeah, especially now that this can be that we can attend the forum online. I think more and more of us expect to join and involve in this forum. I remember the one in 2010. It was in Indonesia. It was held in one of the hotel in Grogol. more than 1,000 attend the forum at that time, and I think now with when it can happen online, more of the people would like to attend, and it shows that this forum have the trust of the people. Yeah, have the trust of the people. People want to know more, want to how to say, make best use to it, want to use this forum to advocate their issue, want to use this forum to reach their government. People trust this forum as a way to fight for our own interests. And I can say from the research that when we talk about the government and ASEAN, member state and ASEAN, we can say that the door still half open. There are still some reluctance from the member states, but the door is there and it's open. And now it is up to us how to make make the door open like wider, to give us more opportunities. But the door is there and open, half open, if I may say. So we have to be. Our team would like to suggest us to see. Okay, there is still challenges on how to make government recognize us more. But we strongly suggest that we see the situation more as optimistic rather than pessimistic. And the fourth opportunity is the track record. We already have, like, it's been here for 18 years. We have the trust. It always happened with all the dynamics, with all the difficulties, with all the issues, with all the gossips, with all the, but it's been here, and so we have the track records. It definitely this need to continue, and this can obviously be our opportunities, our strength. With this, unfortunately, there are still issues. Yeah, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 point of issues. Some is more technical, some are more substantive, some are important for some, and some are less important for others. One of the points that we recognize in our research is that participants, there are still participant differing perceptions about what the nature of this forum is. Is it an annual get-together event, or is it an event for advocacy? Is it a annual party get-together, just like meet, say hi, hello, how are you, sharing experience, sharing stories, or this is an event for advocacy? So there are still two different perceptions about this forum, and like it or not, it influences how the forum can, the running of the forum, the organizing of the forum, and further the impact the forum can make after the D-days. Yeah. Point number 2, it can be the strength or it can be an issue. There are two diverse topics discussed. It is more like a hypermarket with no room for elaboration. So we like, for example, the forum that we have this week is only 3 days. We have a lot of agendas. We want to share all of our experience. We want to know more about others. But with all that we want, what happened during 3 days, this coming 2 days and this coming 2 days, we will only talk about the issue in the surface. We have no room for elaboration. How, without elaboration, how can, for example, we come up with a deep recommendation, a doable recommendation? Unfortunately, time is very limited. Yeah, for some it is a good approach, because, like, for those who see this as an annual get-together, the most important thing is sharing stories, sharing experience, and having network. So there is, for some see that there is no need to go deep. There is no need to have like a special a forum or spaces to have like a very deep discussion, because the most important thing is to get to know each other. to exchange a name card, for example. Yeah, but for some other who see this forum as an event for advocacy, some say that it is very important to have spaces and time to discuss topics in depth, so that we know how to really speak for our for the member states. For some, for example, one of our respondents said that for some of us who have difficulty to talk to their government, they somehow expect that Acsc APF can be a way for them to put pressure on their own government. Like for example, Mas Awi have difficulty to talk to discuss the human rights issue with, let's say, mention one big name. And Mas Awi said that I don't have access to him. I don't have access to Pak Jokowi. It's very difficult for Menteri Luar Negeri, for our foreign minister to hear what happened in Indonesia. Then Mas Awi said that I would like to use Acsc APF to put pressure on Indonesian government. So some of us have that expectation. If that to happen, then we need to have a forum to have this for a detailed discussion. But so far, there is no room for elaboration in this forum. Yeah. Point number 3, we know this very well: politicization of the interface meeting. Interface meeting is one of the opportunities, one of the strengths of this forum. For some of us, we talk about, when I say us in here, I refer to not only Indonesian civil society, not only Indonesian people, I refer to all the Asian people on all the CSO in ASEAN in 10 member states. For some of us, interface meeting is very important because probably this is the only time where they can really sit face to face with the representation of the government. Yeah, this is important for us, and the government, the member states realize the strategic importance of this forum as well. That's why during the 16, up to 2020, during the 16 annual events, there are only 6 interface meetings. Why only 6? Because the rest, during other Acsc APF, member states prefer not to have this meeting, or in certain case, some of us decided not to have the meeting because member states put too much limitation. Okay, we have the meeting, but we don't want to meet this. Okay, we have the meeting, but. Because rather than have the meeting with limitation, too much limitation put by member state, in certain case, some of us decided, better not to meet them, rather than meet, but following what they want. So this is a very strategic meeting. For some of us who come from like a more democratic countries who have direct access to government, probably this is just like some other meetings. Like for Mas Awi, for example, I meet the minister every now and then. So we have this or don't have this, that's okay. But for some of us, and then we go to the next, I go to the next point. There is no mechanism of follow-up action. This is one-stop event up to now. And there are, we also found there are some organization issue between regional steering committee and national organization committee, which is expected because NOC in any way they have to also they have to also consider the interest of the host countries, for example, and NOC have to face the pressure from their own civil society, for example. This is expected that there is an organization issues, but unfortunately what we found in our research is there is no mechanism yet on how to formally solve the issues. Yeah. So these 5 points lead to the main challenges of this forum. It is the limited ability in advocating the interests of the people as it is expressed in the document of recommendation to ASEAN leaders. Okay, sorry, thank you. So while actually what the expectation of Acsc APF is to be a forum, yeah, to channel the interest of the people to the leaders. How can we be the forum if we have internal issues that disallow us to really channel, advocate our interest to the government? Yeah. Next, so our recommendation, the first point is very technical, rebranding, one solid name that is more easiest to say other than Acsc APF, Acsc APF, Acsc APF. Yeah, we suggest FSIP, simple FSIP. We keep the forum and we keep the people as the main nature. But during the previous discussion, we have discussed the book several times before. During this previous discussion, there is a very important input. We cannot change the name as like that because, you know, Acsc APF, it's been written in the blueprint. So it's not easy to just change the name. So in the meantime, we need to survive this Acsc APF. Yeah. Hopefully we will get more familiar with this term. Second point of recommendation is institutionalization. We suggest the forum to be by design, yeah, the forum to be designed to be developed as a platform for CSO in the region to work together on issues facing by the people. So instead of just like a annual gathering, this forum should be designed as a platform, official platform for us to fight for our issues. Yeah. So if we want it to be official platform, then we have to have term of reference indicating principles, mandates, functions, and mechanisms. We have to have RSC and OCs and working groups on issues. Working groups on special issues will work throughout the years. So the forum, the get-together, can be just one-stop forum, but the continuation of the forum from the recommendation, the deep discussion, the elaboration of the issue will go throughout the years, from in between two SCSCs, APF. It should be so we have the space for discussing issues in details. And we also recommend to have 2 layers of recommendation. The first layer of recommendation is to be submitted to the leaders, and the second layers of recommendation, more technical, more doable recommendation, less philosophical, will be submitted to the ministries, for example. Yeah, and the first layer probably the outcome of the annual gathering, but the second layer is will be produced by the working group that is organized throughout the years. Next, so on the topic of this SCSC, democratizing ASEAN, reclaiming people's space. We have the space, right? We already have the space. This is the space. We don't need to reclaim the space. I'm sorry for the co-chairs. We already have the space. The problem is how to make best use of the space that we already have. Yeah. Next, sure we can, but we have to empower ourselves. How to empower ourselves? First point is to know exactly, to identify what we want. What we want. What do we want from the SCSC APF? Yeah. Do we want it to be just like a gathering, get-together, party? If that's as simple, if that's what we want, it happened already. But if we want more, we want to make change, we want to put policy recommendation. We want the government, we want member states to really acknowledge us. We want member states to come to us of what recommendation of what to do. Then we have to make this forum more structured. Not only meeting, not only gathering, but it's more structured. And all the meetings have to discussing issues have to like I said before, happen throughout the years. So we have to have like a strong organizational structure. Only by then we can really democratizing ASEAN from the bottom, and it is our strength actually as the people of ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbak Riris, for really like a good marking and alarm clock for us. Yeah, to maybe we can have several discussion afterwards, yeah, Mbak Riris. Omar have been with us already, right? Yes. Yes. Okay. Please welcome Kin Omar.
Hello? Can you? Hello, can you hear me well from the end? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for joining this morning. And so I was thanks also to Riris for sharing with us very comprehensive assessment of our space, the ACSC APF. So as I was listening to Riris, and you brought me, and I'm sure many of our colleagues here, into the past years, the 16 years of our time as we gone through like one year after another. And there are a lot of memories come back as you share with us your assessment, which also with your recommendations, I cannot agree more. Through my years of experience and being involved, including the organizing of the ACSC APF in our country, in Myanmar in 2015. So I cannot agree more with your assessment. So if I may also add some of my points, but I also, as we hold these 3 days regional strategy meeting for us to prepare for the ACSC APF of 2023 ahead of us in September, I think this discussion that we will have today will help us also lay the grounds and prepare for the 2023 ACSC APF to be a real meaningful space for the people of ASEAN as we all have the passion and inspired and try working towards for a long time. I want to start saying that we're talking about the space, whether we're reclaiming or whether we are really utilizing it, but I think it's about the space, isn't it? So in the space, what I have also remembered throughout our experiences, we started with the name ACSC, the civil society. Then we started to add attach the name with the APF, the People's Forum, and these two come together. I think it's important to recognize as much as we are the people of ASEAN, but also there are also the differences in terms of our identity and the work that we are involved. So it becomes a realization for us who started and be involved in the ASEAN Civil Society Conference when the discussion came the civil society alone doesn't represent comprehensively or inclusively of the people of ASEAN. Then we are yes, that is true. So let's have the name with another element of the meaning of the people. That is the grassroots people. Then there is this APF. So we started with the ACSC APF. We started with ACSC, then we move on to the ACSC APF. Then I remember very vividly in Cambodia time when there are grassroots people who feel like they are not a part of us in this ACSC APF platform. They don't feel like they have a meaningful space to express their concerns and the challenges that their communities are facing. Then there is another platform emerged called as ASEAN Grassroots People Assembly, ACPA. So I think we have to also bring in that development along as we come together. As we come together, we try to see more of like how we can really come more collectively, and then we also see there is a need to also expand the space for that inclusiveness. So when we had some limitations along the way, we also start to see some of the communities also organize among themselves, like this ASEAN Grassroots People Forum in Cambodia. That whether we are NGO, work day to day in the office, or the labor rights activists who are trying to actually, push all of these discrimination and from their laborers and from their employees, or the land rights activists, the farmers who are trying to gain their land back. I think in that different layers of struggle, I think we see this, whether we call ACSC APF or something else, or the ACPA, I think altogether it is the space. So in that space, inclusiveness to me is really, really the fundamental principle and element of this space. But also in that space is this solidarity. So when I look at our space, this is the space, no matter how we come with the differences, including in our opinions. But this is the space where we will try to collaborate and try to be more collective as possible, but also with more of our creativity and also more strategy, a strategic thinking behind. To do what? I think is for all of us coming together is in this, our people's struggles in our different countries. We want to see the equity, economic justice, human rights protection, security, human security, safety, peace, and also the stability and the livelihood. I think in this is like I'm just putting in this box of why we will come to such space is because we want to see the outcome. We want to see we see that this space that we can be more inclusively and equally and meaningfully participating if we also do our own work within our national consultation. And there have been past experiences when we rush in, we were not able to organize among ourselves, then it is our people on the ground who will complain us, who will feel like that they've been left out. And that is also one of the lessons learned throughout the past years. Of course, we can never have everybody in this space, but there are ways that we can process, that we can make sure and try to make sure the voices of our people from the ground are included. Their concerns are addressed in this platform as much as we can. So I see people like us and the national organizing committees of different countries. We are more like facilitators, really. We are the facilitators to really open the space, secure the space, make sure the space is meaningful with our inclusive inclusive participation and equal participation, but also this is a space as facilitators, as the national organizing committees, together with, in our collective facilitation, to also ensure that this is the space that we need to defend. This is the space we need to defend. It is defending our space too. We need to ensure this space is secure. The people who come with the faith and trust in us but also with the feeling that they feel safe coming and speaking in this platform. There's so much work, that's so much nitty-gritty works involved for all of us to ensure that this space is secure. I think the whole solidarity is something that I want to come back to, because as we are to protect our space, defend our space, reclaim our space, and utilize our space, but it all lies in this solidarity. What do we mean by solidarity? In my experience throughout the ACSC APF, the solidarity is not only like, of course, lending support to each other's struggle in our countries, but also there are other elements deeply involved, like patience, listening, deeply listening, and also like respecting our each other's space. Like each national organizing committees will have a role to play that we all will recognize and respect. For example, like inviting the speakers to their platform. It's always been our good practice that we will consult and go through the respective national organizing committee members or those who are from their respective countries, instead of organizing or like inviting directly, which can create more confusion, misunderstanding among us that we don't need it. We should not be having, getting into that kind of trouble in our coming together. So I think it's really important that we also look into what we mean by the solidarity. And leaders, governments, and the regional blocks leaders policy. We want the people's aspiration and people's concerns and the solution from the ground reflected in the leaders' decisions and resolution. I think this is where I see that's why we need to come together. How do we merge it? And we really talk about like also the different bodies and how do we institutionalize it? Do we institutionalize it? But if we do, let's not also forget that there is this ASEAN Youth Forum. How do we ensure that ASEAN youth are actually connected in this people's space together? And also, they are the one to in as a foundation of this space as we will institutionalize, if we are going to institutionalize. I think I want to end by saying that in this space, we should all be, regardless of our differences, we should be able to agree on the principle of human rights. This is also how we will pass on the flag to the future generation to protect and defend the space of the people and advance this space. I think this is the principle of human rights is some and reaffirm through my experience is that we do as one event or two events kind of, like a year as the ASEAN chair rotates, but then we don't come back and revisit the demands and the calls and our own good practices and the challenges also that we face along and how we overcome, how we address this collectively, regardless of our differences. And put this also as the institutional memory, not only as an institutional memory, but as the laying foundation for our future generation to also move on. I think this is where I see that we can be strengthening our own space, we can be strengthening among us, and also our solidarity base here. So with that, I want to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech, Kim Omar. I think we can proceed to our next speakers, Josephine Olive Parilla. Please welcome Ms. Olive.
Okay, good afternoon. Can I have my share screen? Okay, to start with, thank you for the introduction a while ago. It's a long introduction, but can I have my share screen, please? what I'm going only to introduce to give myself in introduction. I am a mother of 7. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Miss Olive.
Okay. Uh, I sent my presentation to you. Can I have my
Yes,
presentation, please?
we can see your presentations already. Please proceed.
You can see already?
Yes.
Okay. But it is not in the screen. Okay. Paano ba ito? Ang presentation ko raw kay Inday na sana eh. Okay, just to add my self-introduction, I am Josephine Parilla, a mother of 7 and having 14 grandchildren. And today, I am celebrating my 31st year in the advocacy work for the workers in the informal economy. I cannot hindi nakikita yung ano ko presentation. Okay. To start also, I'm part of the Patamaba workers in the informal economy. It is the economic arm of the Patamaba in Rizal, of which also it is a social solidarity enterprise responding to the social and environment problems of sustainable economic activities benefiting both its members and the larger community. So Patamaba Wise is affiliated to Home Philippines, and the national Patamaba organization here in the Philippines. So next slide, our observation from the past ASEAN ACEC ASEAN People's Forum. First, grassroots representative from the groups like us or like Community participate in convergence spaces to push for issues such as social protection, effective implementation of the ASEAN Declaration on strengthening social protection, and accompanying framework which contains progressive principles and program, including but not limited to there's no monitoring and evaluation on it, and there is a need for strengthening the voice, presence, and collaboration of grassroots movement and civil society to make changes inside ASEAN bodies through critical engagement and outside through joint solidarity-based position and action. So the promise of the ASEAN Declaration. Can you put in the next slide, please? Next slide. Okay. Again, on the next slide. Can you put it on slide 6? Slide 6, next slide. Okay. And the next slide, please. Okay, the promise of the ASEAN Declaration on Strengthening Social Protection Framework and Action. As we all know, ASEAN defines social protection as policies and programs designed to reduce poverty, inequalities between the gap between the rich and the poor, the vulnerability of the poor and other population at risk. This includes also the sector of women, children, older person, workers, persons with disability, indigenous people, and among others. And also the ASEAN confirms that social protection is a basic human rights and should be rooted in a right-based or needs-based life cycle approach and cover essential services as needed. And its key principle on participation, transparency, gender equality, social inclusion, non-discrimination, coherence, adaptive to various risks and shocks. And its goal, I collectively accelerate the progress towards universal health care in all ASEAN member states. Likewise, the ASEAN Declaration emphasizes on the social protection as an investment in people, which should be supported by adequate resources in order to empower them to meet their basic needs. And well, we have to note that the progressive content came from the civil society organization engagement when the declaration was still being framed. Universal health coverage began in Thailand, where Homely Thailand and a network of people's civil society launched a concerted campaign for it and succeeded as well in their campaign. Next slide. The true prone strategy of Homely Southeast Asia. First, continue critical engagement with ASEAN bodies and states beyond the Acsc, APF through social dialogue. For example, we have this, no? We have engagement with the ASEAN. Twice we did an ASEAN forum with the ASEAN Secretariat on specific issues such as COVID-19 and the ASEAN Declaration per se. Second, strengthen people-to-people integration and collaboration through learning exchanges and visit. For example, on social solidarity economy, on food sovereignty, RR, in the light of the climate emergency, just transition, and social protection for all. The Wigo and the homeless engagement, which I mentioned a while ago, we did that for during our March 2, 2022, which talk about how the workers, the informal sector, or basically the home-based workers affected by COVID and their livelihood. So we did that. We had collaboration with ILO and the ASEAN Secretary per se. And on the second collaboration with us is of course the reset which we did in March 22 when the Homely Southeast Asia and WIGO and the country Homeless discuss or take a validation or a monitor of what happened and what transpired. The EF is one, bringing together disconnected and the groups research. So as we said, the Homelit Wigo engagement in ASEAN is, as you can see in the screen, we had enhanced regional learning and collaborative platform in Southeast Asia promoting the development of comprehensive, exclusive, gender-responsive social protection for workers in the informal economy. So so as you can see, there's MBO capacity strengthened, the effect, and we have at least 5 highlighting also how the management and of course the sector divide. So next slide is the bringing together the disconnected and disparate groups, and then the research and documentation, the mainstreaming of the alternative practices such as the social solidarity economy. This is in relation to transitioning of informality. This is discussion on informalization, the development or developing paradigm and new theories, which number 1, the ACSC APF role, which is coordinative, for convening, documenting, researching, conceptualizing, and mobilizing the alternative practices, especially on regional interaction and joint action and the communities behind them. Second, the ACEC or APF will provide an alternative model of regional integration and people solidarities that transcend boundaries, borders, and nationalities. And of course, in all convergence spaces. The real challenge facing by our platform, the ACS APF today, lies from outside and beyond the ASEAN box, and instead from the grassroots initiatives and creative practices of real people struggling to carve a better and more dignified life for their families and communities and for the future. Likewise, we have to continue the critical engagement with ASEAN and ASEAN states, but we must first build people-to-people solidarity, which is ultimately the source of transformative and lasting change. So it is us to start with if you want to be heard. So there's are some strategies for alternative integration process. First, Southeast Asian people and communities have for many years and on their own been engaged in alternative practices that encompasses economic, political, and social cultural aspect. Of course, again, reiterating the people-to-people relationship and indigenous local practices. And through economic people-to-people trade, cooperatives, social enterprises, and other social solidarity entities, and among other collaboration and convergence, and political regional network, talking on human rights, the fundamental rights, the migrants, and any vulnerable and marginal rights, and the sociocultural, which among us, artists and performers do exchanges their initiative. Um, as to our ways forward, we need to increase participation in social dialogue, expand convergence spaces, especially from grassroots, strengthen the organization, build the capacity and capability of individual members, and continue to organize. We have to continue to campaign for social protection for all, based on income and livelihood recovery and security, for universal health care and national laws, policies, instruments that will protect the sector. So probably, and thank you, that's end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine Mabuhay. uh, Please, we welcome Gerald Joseph, our last but not least speakers. You can start now, Joseph.
Uh, g- uh, Good morning, friends, to the moderator, to the co-chairs, the four co-chairs. Thank you for organizing this. Congratulations. And to Atma University for opening up the space. Historically, you've been a center for student activism, so you continue to create space for ASEAN. Thank you very much. I think the maybe one suggestion is that using Zoom doesn't give us the feel of ASEAN because all those who are attending, we cannot see each other. It's in a separate space, so you are like alone. So maybe to the organizers, if you can put everybody in a common space so we can know each other, we can chat with each other and know who's attending, that will be a nice feeling. I think the background document that the organizers have put already, I think the co-chairs have spoken that, yeah, the word people-centered is there. What happens to ASEAN people cannot be magically different from what happens to how our government treats us at home. So we have to be practical to know that because we come for ACSC APF doesn't mean how governments behave suddenly changes. So we have to be more strategic and more practical in assessing them. And it is true, over the years, we have created our brand name that ASEAN does recognize us. But also, at this point, I want to congratulate our friends from Timor-Leste because I think formally this is their first ASEAN meeting that they are participating as a member already, although observer. So we have the full family of ASEAN. So congratulations to our brothers and sisters in Timor-Leste. I want to acknowledge what I've heard so far from our friends on the panel, both our colleague from Philippines, Kinoma, Myanmar, and many others, that in our region, we have serious human rights issues, democracy issues, good governance, development issues, and that's a given. And that struggle and that work continues with or without ASEAN, because we know this is our human right, this is the life of people, and we will continue to struggle. But to be fair, ASEAN is not about just the difficult issues of Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, as we heard earlier, but it's also about Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, where so-called more developed nations have many issues. Like in Malaysia, we have race, religious extremism. growing. In Singapore, very repressive civic spaces. Indonesia development is growing so great, but the impact on development on people is very serious. So I think it's about all 11 countries is our analysis of an ASEAN. I want to straight away dive into what we know as the ASEAN of the 11, and now the 11 governments. First of all, it's political in nature. It's about governments in ASEAN. It's not another new being. It is the same governments we work with, we fight with, we love, we hate. It is the same governments at home that come together to lock arms as ASEAN. So first of all, it's political in nature. The other difficulty in ASEAN is the consensus decision-making process, hardly anything can move forward because one government will say cannot, or I don't agree, and then it takes too much time, and most of the decisions are what you call lowest denominator when they make a decision. So it's not the highest that we expect, but lowest. Then, of course, this is linked to blocking the need to respond to difficult issues, like in the Myanmar issue, So they tried the 5-point consensus, and we know it's not working, and what else can they do? But some members of ASEAN, you could see it through Aicha and even through some of the foreign ministers, have issued strong statement on the Myanmar issue, and that's been very good. So although it says cannot, but they are trying something. The other difficulty of ASEAN is non-interference. Don't get involved in my business. I'll manage myself because you're supposed to respect me as my neighbor. And human rights has no borders. Democracy has no borders. So we as civil society know that we have to talk about everyone. And that's the word solidarity I heard mentioned so many times. But I also want to recognize that our work of solidarity does not hinge on ASEAN. Our work on solidarity hinges on our work on the ground with people. So solidarity is already existing with or without ASEAN. We also recognize this ASEAN that we have wants to mention civil society but don't want to really work with civil society. And we know that for a long time. I think the research that Riri spoke about also said sometimes they want to engage, sometimes they don't want to engage. So that goes on forever. And also, ASEAN is an ASEAN of a business community, of development, bringing more money to the region. And they don't dare actually take up many difficult issues, although the challenges are now becoming more real, like South China Sea. I just wanted to put that as my first block on ASEAN itself, what we know as the flaws. But now I want to look at us in civil society. Are we very different from this ASEAN that we are complaining about? Number one, let's be honest with ourselves that we are also political in nature. Civil society that come from these 11 countries are also very different politically, and we also play political game. And it's not been easy to get an ASEAN people as one big, strong family because there's so many blocks by civil society, different groups with different interests. So we've always been trying to bring together the family, but it's not easy. And we have to answer this. Why do we come here to try to organize ourselves as an Acsc APF? Is it a solidarity forum? Or is it actually an advocacy forum where we are pushing ASEAN to be sharper and more responsive? Because solidarity, I believe we do it every day throughout the year. So many regional NGOs, international NGOs have a lot of big, effective forums anyway. So why come to this ASEAN to just spend so much time and energy as a solidarity forum? But this is something that we always get stuck. How much to push advocacy? And some people say, don't waste time with ASEAN. Let's just gather together and listen to each other's story. It's not wrong, it's nice, but why do we need the ASEAN space? Because we can do it anyway without ASEAN. I'm saying we are here because we are not happy with the ASEAN we have, and we want that ASEAN to be better. So become a sharp advocacy space. In terms of our own ACSC APF decision-making process, are we also following the ASEAN consensus modality? Because can we go by majority when the regional steering committee meets? Can one country say, I disagree? And are we using also the ASEAN model that we cannot move forward because 2 or 3 countries don't agree? This is a question to think about. What is our principal framework for universal standards that guide us in our decision-making process? In the ASEAN governments, their only principle is national sovereignty. Is ours universal human rights standard, sovereign to all people, or we also use the same framework? My country don't agree, so we cannot move forward. And I think for many ACSC APF, we have been stuck because some countries disagree and try to block progress. So we need to come to some way of what guides us as our principal base to move forward. And this also has shown us in some of blocking progressive ideas to move forward. Daniel and Fatia and other colleagues from the organizing committee, I know it's hard work. I know you all have been struggling hard day and night. But my question is, aren't we late? We are May, summit is next week, and we are now only planning, discussing, trying to put together. Shouldn't have we started our work 2 years ago? So the notion that we only start when the thing hands over to us is also very flawed, And governments are far more organized because they have many staff, they have a systematic approach to meetings, how they propose ideas. We don't. So 10 years ago, when we discussed after the Malaysia APF, it was time to have a permanent secretariat in Indonesia, but that did not get support. And that was not about control, but it was about making ourselves more effective in order to have a seamless preparatory process towards an ACSC APF. Then the question I think was already mentioned about the word interface. We are, I think, the only region intergovernmental process at the summit level where heads of state at least has a space to meet different actors, so civil society, the youth, ASEAN parliamentarians and business. I think the youth, parliamentarians and business still continue annually, but we have not been so successful. One is, as I mentioned by release, that is the government. But another part is that we ourselves don't want to pursue this. Some civil society said, don't waste time, we cannot meet with terrible governments. Then the point about advocacy is moot when we cannot meet them and push and speak the same language. And the other point mentioned, which I totally agree, is that APF ACS cannot be a one event activity. So now we are preparing for Summit 2 or October or September, and then goodbye and we pass it on to the next organizer. It should be an ongoing push for advocacy at the ASEAN. ASEAN has, 600 meetings a year, ministerial meetings, senior level meetings. Civil society should be there. Our people who know the subject matter should be there to push our agenda, people's agenda into those spaces, which sometimes probably is easier. It's less political than the summit, but we are not organized because we are also struggling in our home country, and that's understandable. So I think we also need to ask the question about ourselves, is that if we want to do it as a grassroots solidarity movement, we can, but we can do it anytime. We don't need this particular space to organize ourselves. Number two, the notion of grassroots involvement also needs to be a bit more realistic and practical. We can never bring everyone. We'll try to be inclusive of everyone, but I think it's about bringing the voices, faces, and people's issues to any particular forum. Whoever goes, could be the 5, 10, 20, and that's the same as the government. The governments meet and decide on behalf of the people. We don't agree, but that does not invalidate their meeting because there's no grassroots there. So similar to us, we bring their voices, but we don't have the resources to bring all grassroots. No one can ever do that. But again, let's take a practical strategic approach of putting in the issues. I think just now Josefina showed some of the very clear issues, but we have to continue, and even the size is small. And my final point, I think, is that our advocacy with government and ASEAN has really been sadly weak. We sometimes seem to organize, like now in Atma, we feel like we got strength, but actually we are in the outer circle because they are in Labuan, forgot the name, yeah, that beautiful island that Daniel mentioned. We are not there. How come? And this we should have negotiated already 2 years ago. We should have put ourselves in every point, either formally inside or editing them from outside, but in the same space. You know, we should be talking to them at other forums leading up to the summit. And we were hoping, I think even the local NOC was hoping that the Indonesian government will be far more open. But I'm not sure what's the response of the Indonesian government. Whether we went in too late to start our negotiation or they are blocking us politically, we need to find out those answers. But let's think again strategically. This is our space, as mentioned by other speakers. But if this is going to be our space in ASEAN, ASEAN is an intergovernmental process, like the UN is an intergovernmental process. We go to the UN and we push our voice, but we follow the UN engagement modality and framework. We go there. Many of us here go to the council, go to New York, despite it being the same governments there. So even here, let's acknowledge that this is an intergovernmental process and we are going in there to push our agenda. And so if we are going in to push, then let's be strategic about which are the points we demand to sit on that space. And let's not end our every APF ACF by being happy that we are able to come together and sit together for 3-4 days as people of ASEAN, because that we can do anytime. Celebrating in our own corners is good among ourselves, but from an ASEAN point of view, it does not disturb them, it does not show the power against the power of the governments. And I think it's about time we critically be prepared to have a different modality to push ASEAN in order for them to recognize us. But for order for them to recognize us, we need to recognize that we have processes that don't actually build strength from strength to strength, that is actually by chance. 1 year it works, 1 year it doesn't work. So we need to actually look at ourselves. So to all the students who are there, who I can't really see you, but you have come to the ASEAN space with excitement. ASEAN is exciting. Be there, be the voice, but also contribute on how we want to demand our space in the ASEAN intergovernmental process. And don't be happy by just being outside, because being outside we can do on our own. We have our own strength. So with that, I hope my reflections are more wanting us to move forward to be a better, sharper voice. With all the reviews we've done, I think Riris and Daniel have done that review. 10 years ago, we did another review after the 10th anniversary of ACS. So we have all the proposals to move forward, but we don't have the courage and the determination to want to try something different boldly, because we ourselves are quite fragmented. So I wish all of us keep up the strength. The pain on the ground is real, and we have so much to do. Thank you very much.
You just hear, yeah? Okay. Yeah, I think we almost end our time, but I think allow us to have several more times, yeah. 15 minutes to questions to answer, or maybe just giving a remark what we thought about this strategic, how we strengthening ASEAN to move forward. I have one online questions, but if there is a questions offline audience, maybe we can start from the offline audience first. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It is really a grateful moment, pre-APF. We try to warming up ourselves, the CSO, to embrace the real conference in September. So my questions to Riris, yeah. I think with all your research and your book, you said that we have to be proud that at least some pillars we have in hand as the ASEAN Civil Society Forum or Conference. At the first, I want to ask you about the recognition. You said that at least Acsc has been recognized by the ASEAN, and then, but to my opinion, with the 17 years APF and with all your feedback as well that mostly we are not successfully doing advocacy, recognition is not enough as a tools for our forum. So what is your suggestion then? So I think that just recognition is not enough for moving forward to ASEAN Secretariat, to the ASEAN governments. So this is my response to Riri's presentations. Thank you.
Maybe I can read the online questions first, and then, of course, everyone as a panelist can also respond to this. From Ted Tan, I think I can read it. If I may pose a question that may be provocative, if we are not organizing this conference or forums on the basis of ASEAN engagement, there is no real natural reasons for the groups of peoples that work together due to the many different issues and contexts we are facing in our own national context. The question is, how would then a forum without ASEAN as a regal bloc, as the focus will take place? So maybe we can start by Riris first to give the first questions, and maybe you can also add to the second one.
Okay, Mbak Eri. Yeah, Mbak Eri. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for highlighting the situation. Recognition in alone is not enough. Completely agree. Completely agree. But the very least, we have the official recognition. With the official recognition, we have like official formal justification to have this forum, to have this space. It is now how we use the space for our own needs. So the main thing is we have the recognition, and then with the recognition, we have to empower ourselves so that we have more push power for the government to listen to us. And for certain cases, it seems to be uneasy, but it is not impossible. Cases shows that, I'm familiar more with what happened in Indonesia, for example. When the government is, although partially ready to hear, we have to use that opportunity with this forum to use the ready government, ready member state to influence the other member states. So in short, I agree, official recognition is not enough, but it is an enough starting point for us to put more pressure to member states. Yeah. Again, finally it depends on us. It depends on us, on what we want and how we do things. Yeah. At the very least, we know that we will have this forum again next year. So do we prepare for the next year forum start from after September, or we need to or we wait until a couple of weeks or months before next year? It's up to us. If we see the importance, if we see it as an opportunity to meet again next year, as other panelists also said, we have to continue meetings. We have to continue have discussion to really formalize the issues. We have to identify which door we can use to make a change in policies, to put policy recommendations. And hopefully next year, when we have this meeting, we are more powerful. So interface meeting next year will be different, or interface meeting next year will be more organized, and we can really talk to the leader, for example. I agree it is not enough, but I see the official recognition is a starting point. Yeah, thank you. So for the second option, how will then a forum without ASEAN as a regional bloc, the focus will take place? Again, I would say it is us to decide. I agree we need to focus. I agree that this forum cannot be just like what our team said as a hypermarket. Probably we need really this forum to meet, to share, and talk about everything. But probably we need to define, for example, this year we will focus to just one issue, and we talk about that particular issue deeply. We make strategy on how on how to talk with ASEAN, with member states, more efficiently, for example. Okay, we talk about everything, but we need to decide on certain focus. So probably this is the homework of regional steering committees in cooperation with NOC. But yes, we have to define one or two focuses that we need to work on every year. Thank you. I hope it's answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Riris. Maybe Josephine, Gerald, or Kin Umar, you have any response to the second questions, or even to the first question as well? Please, yeah, Gerald.
Thank you for the question, sir. So on the first question, I think the recognition part is we have to decide. I used the word, this ASEAN is an intergovernmental meeting. Like the UN, we go for an intergovernmental. So if we are going to be present, then we need to understand their modality and push ourselves inside. But it's their modality. If you try to reframe that modality from outside, we can, but then it's not going to be effective inside. I just share with you the example when we did it in Malaysia. We were shocked because at that time, it was the more repressive government of Malaysia. Now things are a bit better, We even demanded the government to give us money. They gave us USD 150,000 ringgit, 150,000 US dollars as a contribution to organize. But did that change our demands? No. Did that change what we wanted to do? No. We still had a rally. We still had 1,500 people coming, but that money was official money of the people for us. We pushed ourselves to be invited for official dinner, opening ceremonies, because that's where all the big heads of states and government leaders are there. And for them to see us, they were very uncomfortable, I must tell you. They were shocked to see civil society leaders in a formal dinner with the head of state. Say, hey, you all are here. So we say, yes. And that should be a regular norm, because ASEAN business gets invited, ASEAN, the formal youth gets invited, ASEAN parliamentary gets invited, but we are not there. Another thing we did was we realized that the modality of statement, the foreign ministers will start the process in February. The senior officials will start the deliberation for any statement even as early as February before they come out with the final statement, which means we needed to get our final statement of civil society already into government way before they come to summit. Handing over a statement on the summit is symbolic. They clap their hand, they say thank you, but we cannot influence the outcome or prove to them they're not interested in us. So in 2015, for the first time, we were able to officially submit our final statement in end of January to the AMM, ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, formally, and every government got a copy of it. So by the time we came to the first summit, we already knew that there are no more excuses because everyone has seen it and then we could demand those language. So that means our work should start way earlier. And I agree with the interface. I think it's a space that we should have. Linked to the second question is that I think if we decide ASEAN is too much of a waste of time for those who are not interested, because I'm proposing it's an advocacy space. But for those of us who feel it's a solidarity space, I think that's what Ted's provocative question. I think, Ted, we have enough opportunities for meeting even without ASEAN. There are huge SDG meetings happening in Asia. Now the UN will organize some specific topical meetings. There's one coming up on the Universal Declaration 75th anniversary. Many regional NGOs, international NGOs have resources to bring many people together, and maybe we can all start plugging into that. I don't find a problem in solidarity happening at the region because we meet each other in many forums, and we normally push our agenda into that particular forum. So without ASEAN, I think our work continues. But if you're going to be in ASEAN, then my provocative question to all of us is that let's behave like how we behave when we go into the UN. We recognize it's intergovernmental, but we are not going to be outside. We go in, use their 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever space, and push our agenda as much as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. Kin Omar or Josephine, do you want any maybe comments or respond to this?
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. To some extent, I will say that I agree with you, Gerald, in terms of how we actually look the ASEAN, because the reality is ASEAN is there, whether the different government changes or not. The charter is there. The charter, in fact, needs to be even reviewed and strengthened. I remember we even developed the People's Charter, right? But we don't go back to our People's Charter and see and compare and see like where the current ASEAN Charter is really moving forward, as it, enshrine like, for example, the democracy and human rights enshrined in the charter, whether it is actually being implemented by the respective government, for example. Do we even go back and look into that? I think that's the very reason, if we want to be more solid and more effective, we can be doing this with a commitment, as Gerald said, as a process. Can we go or bypass the ASEAN? Well, we should still keep it as an option. In my opinion, we should still be using the ASEAN, but also looking beyond the ASEAN as the people. We should still be able to, work with the other peoples beyond ASEAN. But I think I think we need to also discuss on like what do we mean by solidarity. I think, in my opinion, is solidarity is not only us meeting in different platforms, just like, one after another from here and there. But it is more about like, how do we really address the challenges of our people and community on the ground? How do we really address those challenges for the solution? And because we want to see the solution to address those grievances and challenges and concerns our people are facing, that's the very reason we need to be able to communicate and engage and push back the policies and practices of the ASEAN as intergovernmental. Intergovernment by means is the governments. I think the challenge that we have is it is not like the Human Rights Council, right? Because Human Rights Council, yes, by the governments, but then you have this mechanism based on the human rights principles, and where you can even have 1 minute or 2 minutes to speak, but still you are able to speak. You have your own space and independence. The challenge with the ASEAN at the moment is, for example, the interface. Interface to me is a very problematic. Throughout my experiences, how can we ensure the interface as our independent space where the governments don't influence or power over on our own decisions? Throughout the process, that's what we have faced, is the governments always, it is the interface is like a space given to us rather than us try to push for our own interface, for our own independent space. So because of the interface, the very solidarity that we should be all together forming and coming, sometimes that solidarity got impacted and stained by the government influence. And that solidarity got cracked because of there are certain governments influence that certain different countries, civil society are unable to push back. And that's where we got into the problem and trouble of losing trust among each other, between us. There are certain spaces that has been because of the government influences that we are not able to defend our solidarity. And that's the very reason in my presentation I share with you, we need to defend and protect our space and our solidarity. Are we able to stand together? Are we ready to stand up for each other, regardless of what our governments tell us what to do in this interface meeting? I think it's very, very important for us to look into that practicality. And I think if I can just come back to the very point from Ted, to me is we still need to push the ASEAN, because after all, if the ASEAN leaders continue to be as the way that as they are, the way that they see the people of their own countries as the enemy, we will never be able to move forward. We will never be able to have the ASEAN as the people's center, where all of their governments, whatever the community development plan for 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter as long as the people are unable to have the protection of their basic rights. And I think this is something that we can address it if we can find a process and mechanisms and modality and the structure with the principles to protect us around, so that we don't see like that we are, we don't get to the point of we lose trust among each other, that we are not able to come back and rebuild that trust that has broken because of this and that challenges. I think that's where I will look at as like, yes, ASEAN, but interface is given to us, and giving the statement ahead doesn't work either, because at the end, these leaders still don't look at our recommendations seriously. So I think throughout the year, one year after another, regardless of who takes the chairmanship, the challenge or the responsibility or the task that if we want to take up is how do we address and process it throughout the year so that we actually are focused and we can see the results. I think just if I may end up with one very good, very, very, very key point, and Jarrell raised that also. The ASEAN have this 5-point consensus to address the Myanmar crisis. After 2 years, it has failed. After 2 years, the Myanmar military is even more emboldened and bombing the civilians almost every day now. And for that, we are in this our region, we are dealing with the international criminals, the military who are committing the international crimes. And these crimes, atrocities, the ASEAN governments, they are not able to address. So in that case, every other issues and all the spillover effects from Myanmar, refugees, migrant workers, the Rohingya people coming to the shore in Indonesia, for example, and all of these, like a post-COVID economic recovery, and all of these will be stumbled or hindered by the crisis in Myanmar. How do we address that, for example? And if the ASEAN leaders are not able to address it, what is the solution from us that we will propose when we also work together in the solidarity among us? I think these are the challenges. If we don't have a process to carry on, I think it will continue to be a challenge. They'll come back to us every year. We come back again for one event that we discuss, then we go back to our own struggles, and we will still be unable to and not able to address adequately as we want to see for the solution sustainable for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Josephine, do you stay with us? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We've had a lot of struggles in the Philippines as informal sector leaders, but I would like to recognize also that the convergence space, no, we had with not only to the government, to the ASEAN, but likewise even at the local level, no, of the local government units. In somehow we have successes on this, and I think as what the previous speaker said, let's continue, let's engage, and of course we have to really to defend our rights, and even to advocate what we long for. So probably convergence spaces for me is very important, and the avenue of having an interface with the government, if if not at the ASEAN level, international level, why not also interface with your national government? So that whatever the member state agreed upon on pushing those social protection declaration, we can ask them, and we can tell them, or how the government will respond to the issue of the sector and your commitment, not just to the ASEAN, but to your people in your community. So for me, the convergence effort we're going to do is getting towards the convergence space also given to us.
Thank you, Josephine. Uh, the committee already said that our time's up, but maybe I just quote some important and also some trigger notions that we can discuss in our next meetings and also next panels for these 3 days. So maybe the committee can also make sure that all the questions that deliver through online can be submitted to the committee and can respond it maybe in other panels and sessions. From Mbak Riris, for example, she delivers some opportunities and also issues regarding the ASEAN People Forums and ASEAN Civil Society Conference that we have to come up with some solutions. She gives several recommendations, rebranding, institutionalizations, and also how all the documents, all the thought of ASEAN People's Meeting can be delivered to the countries, member state, and also maybe in some others opportunity to the ministry as a governmental executive of the governments. And from Ms. Kin Umar, I think there are also some thought that we have to take into considerations. We agree that there is so many development of the ASEAN People Forums and also ASEAN Civil Society Conference. But we need to see the fundamental principles that we have to make sure that all the discussions discuss about these two. First is the inclusively and include all the grassroots. And the second one is solidarity. I think this is two principles, fundamental principles that we have to take into account as well. And also we can share this forum as a lesson learned from the several process. Listen to each other and also respect to each other to make sure that we have the equal opportunity to share our issues as a national organizations. From Josephine, we learned that we need to ensure the commitment of the social protections, especially women and children, and also labor. She delivered the issue of urgently need of the process towards universal health coverage in ASEAN, particularly some regions that we know that we have problems with the health services. And also she delivered a strategy, first critical engagement, of the ASEAN bodies and state members, and how, as a people, we can strengthening our power to be integrated. First, for example, about the values that ASEAN have until today, the consensus, non-interference mechanisms, and nation sovereignty that define by their own definitions as a state. We also have an issue on blocking the need these conversations and agree with the Oman, the principal framework is needed to move ASEAN people's discussions forward. We know that ASEAN People Forum is not only an event. We hope this conference, this forum, should become a going push advocacy in many agendas. And I think with this homework, we continue to discuss and find the solutions, hopefully not take too long because we have several years already. However, from the discussions, we know that solidarity and the equal space for us is very important to be in mind, and let's talk these conversations to another sessions and panels. I, as a moderator, thank you so much for all the panelists, and also all the people still here patiently. I think we have a break. Thank you for lunch break. So we have to uphold our human rights, which is the food, the right of food. So please enjoy your breaking time. I give it the time for the committee.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for lunch break. I would like to inform you that our lunch break is until 1:30 p.m. It will be a great pleasure to have you return to this room on time. Thank you very much.
Just some announcement. The after lunch session will be closed session for the regional steering committee and national organizing committee members. And then the open public discussion will start at 4 p.m. on thematic discussion number 1. For the online participants, we will have a lunch break until 1:30. Welcome. We will be waiting for you until 1:30.